Well, hello there, everyone. Andy Spoons here. I hope this finds you well. I wanted to just take a moment. I realized this isn't actually something that I've done before, which is give a little tour of my workshop space. And full disclosure, workshop is a overestimation of what it is. So taking out a deck and replacing everything, there were still some lengths of timber that were really good, or at least manageable, and so I used what I could to retrofit a little shelf and a bit of a workshop space into what is our laundry. So I'm going to give you a bit of a tour and a bit of a rundown of the tools that I use, the day-to-day tools that I use, the other things that I might have in my workshop that I find really essential for spoon carving and for sharpening and for, other just kind of day-to-day DIY things. So I hope that you enjoy this mini workshop tour. So like I mentioned, I demoed a deck a few days ago and ended up with what they were using as joists, which is questionable, but that's a different conversation, which were fine. There was a few of them that I could salvage, and I was also redecking with spotted gum, which is really beautiful Australian hardwood timber. And I had some offcuts, and I figured I would just create a bit more of a shelving unit. You can start from the main deck, you could call it. Really simple. I try and keep things as clean as I can. So I've got the Tormek T4 just there, and then if you pan up, you'll see up there is the Tormek accessories and stuff like that. And then, like I said, because I work in construction, I also have a lot of my building supplies up there as well, some just kind of odds and ends, my my flight case, which I load all of my carving tools into. So yeah, that's kind of the sharpening system there. On top of my hot water heater, I also have, some kind of bibs and bobs, my batteries for all of my power tools, and then the Japanese water stone, which fits on the T4. So I guess one place to move on to next is the wall of axes and fro, I suppose. I have my wood tamer apron just there, and then on the axes from right to left, I have my Julia Kaltoff small carver. I have the wood tamer and Farmer's Forge collaboration Australian carver, which is really beautiful. It's a spotted gum handle, all Australian made. And then I have my heavy user, which would be the Gränsforsbruck large Swedish carver, and his name's Clyde. Then up here we have the Svantejav Fro. I've got my little silky Gomboy 240 medium saw. I use that for pretty much all of my carving needs. Silky was actually kind enough, if we could just kind of pan down here into the corner there, you can see I have a Katana Boy 500 along with my chainsaw, my steel. It's just a small one, a little 181. And then over here we have a Fidea Tools small spoon adze is what they call it. I have my wood tools. This is actually my mum's wood tools axe that I was regrinding, but I did also used to own one and then have since sold it onto someone so that they could use it. And then this is the steel, I think it was called like the AX 600 or something like that. It's 600 gram, very standard little kind of forestry axe. Nothing super special, but it's good for getting bark off things. So I guess looking against the kind of arms, I've got, a ruler, level there. Where else? I've got another strop hiding here, sharpening strop. I have my bodger's bib down there, carving bib, and then behind that is a little DeWalt pull saw, which I actually use on site quite a lot for any decking that I'm doing, any corner cuts, just to finish cuts off with the, doing the main line with the skill saw and then finishing those corners with the pull saw. And then if we move up here, I've got some universal bars for the Tormek. So those are what you would rest your tools on. Then I have some dowel which I use to strop my hook knives. One of them is just a strop, basically some compound rubbed onto some dowel, and the other one has little kind of O-rings on it that I attach sandpaper to. Over here I have some WCC knives that they've sent me. Really, really nice knives, and it's a pleasure to try them. And you know what? Let's grab this tool roll out and have a look at things a little bit more intensely in a second. I also have, there's an axe in the back there, which is an old Holzbrook, I believe, yeah, Holzbrook, that I refurbished. It was all rusty and beaten up against someone's garden shed. Got some walrus oil products up here that all of those get used. I actually used the walrus oil on this kind of fascia piece. Makes it look pretty nice. Don't mind saying so myself. If you're looking for some hardscaping in the Blue Mountains, you can reach out to me there. A little speaker, and then up here are my two draw knives. The bottom one is a Sloyd Magnus Sunderland draw knife, which I really love. I use that a lot. And then the one above was a 1930s Dunlap draw knife, so more of a kind of large scale draw knife that you would have got in, say, a Sears catalog in the 30s that I ended up resharpening. Really, really nice thing. Little USB chargeable fan, because we live in Australia and I'm working in a laundry, so it's hot. Oh, and I didn't mention there's also a large strop there. That's the main strop that I use. I can't remember the company. It was it's a kangaroo leather strop on a piece of perspex, like kind of float perspex, so it is perfectly flat, which is really nice. Yeah, that is pretty much a full coverage of my stuff, but let's open up this tool roll and have a look in there. I figured what I would show you here is what is kind of always in my tool roll, whether it's going to workshops, whether it's carving at my home. There are basically three to four tools that I primarily use, but I do end up getting a lot of use out of all of these. So let's just go from one side. We'll just go from left to right. A lot of these are from the same makers, same few makers. I've had people ask me, which brands do you get of spoon carving tools? And I think it's really important to let people know that because spoon carving or green woodworking is quite a small community, when you're looking for woodworking tools, unless you're doing something like Morakniv, who do, you know, a good kind of larger produced, mass produced style spoon knife, if you're looking for anything that takes that next step into the craft, you're talking to an individual person. You're less likely to be talking to a company as such. It's more going to be individual blacksmiths, bladesmiths, tool makers who are working basically in small batches. So let's start from this side. So this is a small chip carving knife from, let's see if you can see that, from a Miguel Belzeboo Crafts. Really lovely little chip knife. I handled that with a, I believe it was a piece of plum. A lot of these have been handled for quite a while now, a few years, so we'll work through it. This is my first carving knife. This is my Mora 106. I still use it from time to time, and also it's really nice to have a knife that I'm a little less precious about. You know, it cost me 20 bucks a few years ago, and if someone wants to have a go at carving, I'm always happy to hand that one over to them. This is a small detailing Sloyd by a maker called Runesland Knives in Washington. Really lovely little 70mm Sloyd. And then we move into a couple of different hooks and styles of knives. This is by Matt White, or Temple Mountain Woodcraft. I'm left-handed, but this is a right-hand biased blade, and so I tend to use this more for push cuts. So if you see a spoon of mine that has heavy faceting on it, this is usually the knife that I will use for those heavy facets. This is a larger Sloyd by a maker named Tamarkin Custom Knives, Yonatan. I hope I'm saying Tamarkin right. I feel like a lot of people have said something slightly different, Tamarkin. But anyway, really beautiful, beautiful knife. Holds incredible edge. I highly recommend his work. He does really wonderful work, and I stitched this sheath myself. That's the other thing about green woodworking tools is quite often they will only send, because they're blacksmiths, steelsmiths, they're not always woodworkers as well, although most of them do carve, which is something that I kind of, if you're looking for tools, I personally look for blacksmiths and bladesmiths that carve as well, because I feel like that gives them a greater insight into the tools. But that's a side thought. So a lot of them do come blade only, or without a sheath, or things like that. So it's another part to consider when you're buying things, that it might not just come as the full knife with the handle and the sheath. Sometimes you have to put in that extra little bit of energy, which to me, I feel like that's great because you can customize things to your own hands and all that kind of stuff. This next one I would say is my heaviest use Sloyd knife. This is my my 4-inch Sloyd from Matt White, Temple Mountain Woodcraft. Really stellar piece of kit. I picked this up once and never put it back down. It gets used on almost every spoon. I do, move away from it and use other knives from time to time, but I would say that is my heaviest user. This is another one from Matt. This is his Monadnock hook. And you'll notice that I do have quite a few hooks, and they're all different radius. They're all different geometry. And that is important, and that can be a whole different conversation. So I'll cover that in a different video. But this is his Monadnock. Really, really wonderful hook knife. I use this on a lot of things as well. This is a new one for me, by a crafts person in Japan. I will put his handle in the description. Hinode. I just had a mental blank of the numbers. I'll put the description in. But this is a wonderful hook. I only got this about a week and a half ago. I use it as a roughing hook right now because of how aggressive that sweep is. So if you see the difference between these two knives, I would say that I use the Matte White knife more as a finishing hook because it's a gentler curve. And then this one has quite an aggressive geometry to it, which means it's really good at digging out quite a lot of material. Really wonderful knife. I've been thoroughly enjoying that. I handled this myself. It came blade only. He did also send me a right-handed hook that I still have to handle. That's on my to-do list, my growing to-do list. And I've made a very simple temporary sheath that takes ages to wrap up, so I'm not going to do that again. But anyway. And then same maker as the chip carving knife and a few other knives here. This is a prototype that I actually made with Miguel from Belzeboo Crafts. He doesn't make this exact shape anymore. This is called a Mefis, is the name that he settled on, and this was a design that I sent to him. He was asking about certain geometry and different designs, and I really like how it's got a slow sweep and then a little bit of a tighter hook. At the top, it's nice for working on the back shoulder of a spoon. Really lovely knife. I've had this for a long time. Again, handled myself. Moving on, by a man, Peter von Trott. This is a detailing knife of his, and I use this a lot. I use this on nearly every single spoon, and where I use it is basically, it looks like, I handled this myself, and it looks like it's almost in an opposite grip, which it is, and the reason is it feels better with the blade pointing towards me because I use it for kind of these smaller cuts. So if I'm doing the chamfers on bowls, it's really nice to grip and reverse grip. But anyway, really wonderful. Blackwood handle, he sent me a block and then I shaped it myself. Highly recommend any Von Trott tools. I've used a bunch of them of other carvers in the mountains. Really lovely stuff. Last two tools here, these are both from Miguel as well, Belzeboo Crafts. They're big. And the reason for that is because I like to use them for leverage. And let's just go. This one is the Luci. I believe it's a Luci, or yes. He has a few different models. I'm fairly sure this is the Luci. So it's a fairly soft hook, as you can see. You can see there, yeah. Fairly soft hook, really nice for shallow bowls. And then I would say this is probably my most used hook, and this is the Hades 50mm. This is a Twca cam style hook, and I use this for all of the heavy roughing out. So you hold it right at the back. You can even rest it on your leg. Rest it right onto the back of your leg, and then it gives you a whole bunch of leverage to be able to twist through. Really, really wonderful knife. I highly recommend that. And then inside my roll, I also have just a little piece of marble, and I use that to burnish the spoon. So once I'm done, it basically just rubs the fibers flat. I don't sand any of my spoons. They're all knife finished, but I do burnish most of them, I would say. The two other knives that are hiding up here in this top section, Ravnoposeven, where is he? Prague? Oh, I'll put the link in the description below as well of his work. So this is a small knife that he sent me. Really beautiful. He sent me two, and I think I mentioned earlier in the video that my mother is a carver, and because he sent me two, I really wanted her to try one because it's quite a small handle. It's the other thing, I've got quite long fingers. I've got quite big hands, so small handles can often be a little bit tricky for me. I tend to overgrip. But I do like this for detail work, and I gave the other one to my mum, who has smaller hands than me, and she loves that knife. She uses it all the time. This last one was sent to me just last week, and it is by VPLKnifeco, Philip, in Washington, I believe. Really lovely. You can see it takes a lot of cues from the Morakniv, a very classic 106 shape. I'll see if I can hold them a little. So it's kind of a slightly more overbuilt 106, larger blade, larger handle. Really lovely. I've only used it a little bit over the last week, but it's really nice. And the sheath is fantastic. It's molded leather with a kind of wood insert, and it's got that nice little kind of friction fit in there. So I keep this here, and that's probably going to become a task knife for me that I'll keep on the shop quite a lot. So that is what is in my tool roll. So there you go. That was a pretty quick little run through of all of the things that I have in the workshop, and I hope that gave you some ideas. I hope that didn't overwhelm you too much. And I think a little final thought of that is you don't need all of those things. I've just been carving for a period of time now where I've started to, kind of build up a little bit of an arsenal of things. People do also send me tools to try. I didn't show all of those. There are more tools, absolutely. But you don't need all of these. You can start with 3 tools. I have a video on, what you need to start with. But I thought it would be interesting to kind of, talk about all of the other things that I've kind of amassed over the last few years of carving. And please let me know if you think I should add anything, if you think I need less. Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing and liking the channel, and I will see you all very, very soon.